Hey, what's up, guys? Ken here from the Retro Toyscapades channel. So, I'm doing more comic book reviews of adaptations of toy properties from the 1980s that I like, which is a long list, basically everything. But today I'm checking out the comic book adaptation of Masters of the Universe, the motion picture. Hey, if you're enjoying this, do leave me a like and a comment as it really helps promote the video. I mean, the channel is still growing, so maybe one day, 5 years from now, you'll look back on this video and it's got maybe like 5,000 views. But for right now, I'll be lucky to get 50. But we'll see. Also, do subscribe to the channel so that we can stop Skeletor and the forces of evil. You see the tiny red bar at the bottom of the screen? That's the subscribe button. Here, I'll wait while you go and hit that. Now, looking at the cover of this book, it's got a price tag of $2, which was a pretty hefty sum to pay for a comic book back in 1987 when this came out. Okay, sure, this thing is extra sized. Something like 48 pages compared to the standard 32 pages of most normal comic books. But a similar sized anniversary special book from that same year, like maybe Amazing Spider-Man 300, was going for about $1.50. Now maybe it doesn't seem like much today, but back in the day, if you saw this on the stands, you might be like, $2? But hey, the jacked up pricing is understandable, as this was a franchise property based on a toy line, and the publishers would have to pay licensing fees to do the book. In fact, if you picked up any comic book based on a toy back in the 1980s, you'll notice that you had to pay more for it compared to, say, a Hulk or an X-Men book. Now, the book itself features amazing art from George Tasca. These are some great renditions of the Masters. However, this isn't the versions of the characters that you see in the actual movie. In fact, the versions of all the main characters like He-Man, Skeletor, Evelyn, Man-at-Arms, and Teela are all based on their toy and cartoon designs and not as the actors that you see portraying them in the movie. Now, since this is a movie adaptation, why wasn't the art based on the likenesses of the actors? Well, maybe they didn't have the rights or had to pay more for them. Or maybe they had to produce this so far in advance that they didn't have access to any of the movie designs or content. And wow, I just love this classic ad for the Masters of the Universe comic book series, which at the time of this publication was probably just a few months away from being cancelled. Anyway, how many of the Masters can you name from this full-page ad? I think it's great that some of the later and more obscure characters like Extenda, Rio Blast, and Clamchamp get featured here too. Now, Masters of the Universe, the movie, was definitely a pretty low-budget affair. Hell, even for the time when we saw it as kids, we knew that it was low budget. But it had a lot of interesting set and character designs. And the acting overall wasn't too bad for a movie based off a kid's toy line and designed to sell more toys. I think in the many years since its release, it's definitely developed a strong cult following, with a deeper appreciation from fans for the material, especially since it's still the only live-action Masters movie we've gotten. Now, this female character here is Julie, who was played by Courtney Cox in the movie. The art surely doesn't make her look like Courtney though, which, as per my suspicion, is also because the likeness rights was not approved. And wow, here's another great ad for an 80s toyline based comic book, The Transformers, and their spin-off series, The Hitmasters. Now, one of my favorite scenes from the movie is the one where Skeletor assembles his bounty hunter team to track down He-Man on Earth. And it's great that the comic revisits this scene as well. We get to see all the new characters like Saurod, Blade, Karg, and a revised version of Beastman. However, I must say that Karg here kinda looks a lot like a Muppet of some kind. Now, this scene is a lot like the one in Empire Strikes Back, where you see an evil tyrant ruler addressing a team of bad guy bounty hunters. Okay, so compared to the movie, there are some extended scenes of action in the comic book once the bounty hunters arrive on Earth. And more scenes of my favorite new character from the film, Sorod, in action. However, the book does omit the scene in which Skeletor kills Sorod for failing in the mission. I mean, all the bounty hunters present there failed in their task, but Skeletor just chooses Sorod at random to be disintegrated. I always felt it was because Sorod had the most awesome armor design and would have been the hardest to maintain on screen due to the film's budget. Now, because the comic is only something like 40 pages long or so, it's impossible for it to condense all of the movie scenes in one book, but it does capture the gist of most of the key scenes involved. Now, one of the major changes happens during the movie's climax. If you remember, we saw Skeletor attain all the power in the universe to become sort of a cosmic gold version of the character. Gold armor appears out of nowhere to make him look super golden and regal, and I guess just more powerful, because gold would be associated with wealth and power. But nothing like that happens here in the comic book, and you just see He-Man and Skeletor fighting it out as the normal versions that you remember. There is an interesting bit at the end where He-Man tries to appeal to Skeletor to end the war, which never happened in the movie, but Skeletor just basically tells him to shove it and chooses death instead. All in, this is a well-made adaptation and an interesting mix of the cartoon's theme set to the plot of the motion picture. And it was produced in the 80s when the Masters brand was at its peak, so that makes this comic book even more legit. Track it down if you can. And thanks for joining me for this throwback look. I'll catch you guys again real soon.